Hi, I'm Mike Warren. This is Mike Cintron. We're from the Academy of Martial Studies, home of the Urban Military Combatives program. We're here today to give you one of our basic techniques, one of the first things we teach our students when they come into the door, be it the Special Forces, Special Operations, or active duty military personnel that we train here on a daily basis that are taking these techniques and using them to save their lives outside the United States here in some very hostile fireplaces. To start with, let's break down the basics. The first principle that we get across to all of our students is, regardless of the technique you're taught, don't fall in love with it. Try to use your techniques based upon the situation or scenario you may find yourself in. And that's what sets the Academy apart from a lot of our peers. It's not necessarily the techniques that we use, but how we train them. We try to train them to a method of proprioceptive reaction. That means prior to your conscious thought, your body's already taking the appropriate action to defend yourself. With that, the cover and throat strike here that we're about to demonstrate and break down the key points of performance is something that can be used in both a defensive or an offensive manner. Defensively, if the initiative is lost and somebody decides they're going to start the action or start the fight first, the cover and throat strike allows you to bounce back and regain initiative and end the fight. Offensively, it's a very strong way of closing the distance with an opponent and putting them out of commission. Again, time is your enemy in a fight, so you want this to be over with as quickly as you can. You don't know if he has friends, you don't know if he has weapons on him, and you don't want to take the time to know. So to start with, Mike here is going to execute a really strong hook here, and I'm going to break down the key points of the cover. Cover is simply taking one arm, smoothing it back, very much like you're putting some gel in your hair, and reaching all the way back to the base of your spine, as far back as you can reach, keeping very little gap or space between the bicep and your forearm. That's so no fist can fit in, and so that you reinforce the back of your neck, which helps you absorb blunt trauma. At the same time, my forearm is going to be tied to my temple or to the side of my head as tight as it can, so that if my arm is hit, I'm not going to knock myself senseless from the force carrying through with that gap here. At the same time, my body is going to hunch forward, allowing me to absorb some impact and start to close off some of the distance here. So Mike's going to execute a solid shot here. For demonstration purposes, we're throwing a hook because a straight shot, if you extend your fist with a cover here, has a very, very high chance of breaking his fist on the tip of my elbow. Now, not that I recommend going in to defend a straight shot with a cover, but whatever happens, happens. So this is just one of the many uses that we look at for this technique. So with this hook that he's going to throw, I'm going to execute a purely defensive cover before we break down the rest of the technique. Go ahead. Allowing his force to be absorbed up in the thickest part of my upper arm, protecting my jaw, my temple, my neck, and letting his weight carry through. Now, to reduce his force, one of the first things we teach our students to do is to close the gap. We even got it all over on our banners. Close the gap. That's in your understanding of the fight, that's in your training mechanisms, and that's in the physical sense here. To reduce the amount of force he can deliver on his impact, I'm going to reduce how far his fists can travel. So in slow motion, as he throws this hook, I'm going to get as close as I can. Some of you are already seeing the potential for this elbow to strike into his face. This is purely defensive. Just up the ante a little, we're going to add a throat strike. For training purposes, we always execute this throat strike to the center of the chest first. It's non-lethal that way. And then we immediately track up to the throat and seize the trachea and grab it till we actually feel the neck coming forward. We want to overcome a lot of our natural instincts to play nice and to play fair. We want to throw that out. When your life is on the line, you cannot afford to hesitate. So as I close this distance and close this gap as he's striking, my hand's going to, with a lot of vigor and force, strike into the center of his chest, driving him back as my hand reaches up into his throat, seizing his trachea, and I begin to drive him back. This driving motion is to take his center of gravity and prevent him from continuously swinging, and I want to actually crush his trachea as I need to. If he's continuing to flail, I crush it faster. If not, I can just shove him off if I need to get out of a building, get towards my car in a parking lot. If I happen to be strong wall entry into a room because my Humvee was disabled due to a roadside IED and I need to occupy a building to protect myself and my team from sniper fire, this gets me in the doorway pretty quick. So to demonstrate this live, as Mike throws a live punch, in this case a hook, so he's less likely to injure his wrist or his fist on my elbow, I'm going to execute the cover throat strike in 3 steps. Once the distance is created, I'm able to, at this time, go to a sidearm. If I'm carrying a pistol, punch out, put another weapon to operation, or get out of dodge if need be. So with Mike's cooperation here, much appreciate you taking the time to look at this technique and take the time to actually practice this with the resisting partner. Find out what's real and experiment with it. Some of the options you may come into is from this cover and throat strike. You can wrap if you're taller, come over top, seize up the shoulder, work a lot of strikes into this, or you may just hammer your fist down, smashing open a nose. There's a lot of options from this, and again, this is just an entry technique. So be sure to read the comments below, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and contact one of our instructors. Thank you, and be safe.